In the age before memory, before even the galaxies had names, there was the Vael Dominion, the first civilization to map the pulse of existence itself. They did not simply rule planets or systems, they ruled life. Across the eons, they learned how to twist DNA, to bend consciousness, to fuse flesh and metal, and to halt death itself. Every living thing that breathed, swam, or bloomed within their territory was coded in their language, every cell stamped with the Vael mark. They called themselves architects of continuity. Others called them gods. Empires rose, burned, and faded beneath their watchful eyes. Species fought for scraps of freedom, but all fell to the same truth: the Dominion controlled creation. From the smallest bacterium to the largest stellar leviathan, life obeyed their will. And when a world resisted, they simply reached into its genetic structure and rewrote obedience into its bloodline. For 10 million years, the Vael reigned unchallenged. Until the anomaly appeared. At first, it was nothing, just an empty sector at the edge of mapped reality. No energy signatures, no communication pulses, not even the faint echo of life. The Dominion had passed it by countless times, dismissing it as a void. But then, sensors began picking up movement, not energy, not radiation, but something deeper. A fluctuation in the life field, the unseen network of all living essence. Something was creating life there. Without their permission. The Council of Continuity assembled in the core spire, a colossal tower of living crystal that pulsed with the rhythm of trillions of controlled souls. The Archon himself, old beyond imagination, his body more machine than organic, studied the readings with mechanical precision. "This is impossible," one biotechnologist rasped. "Every living pattern originates from the Dominion's code. Nothing exists outside the lattice." "Unless," the Archon said softly, his voice echoing through layers of synthetic reverberation, "someone learned how to write their own." They dispatched fleets, vast, living ships that breathed and hunted like animals. They entered the void expecting resistance, but found only silence. Planets of ash. Dead moons. Empty orbits. Then they found Earth. At first, it seemed unremarkable, primitive, even quaint. Life had evolved naturally. Ecosystems thrived without artificial interference. The Dominion scouts observed from orbit, recording, dissecting, and cataloging every species. But something unsettled them. There was no genetic watermark. No trace of Dominion design. And yet the planet overflowed with diversity, chaos, and intelligence. Entire species had risen and fallen without divine guidance. Even the dominant life form, humans had mastered their environment without access to the Dominion's genetic technology. The Archon watched in fascination. "They are an evolutionary paradox," he said. "An ecosystem that built itself. They are self-born." A single phrase echoed through the council halls after that. If they can create life without us, then they threaten the Dominion itself. So they decided to test humanity. The first contact was not peace. The Dominion released a biowave over Earth's atmosphere, a wave of nanogenic spores capable of rewriting DNA within hours. It was designed to mark all life with their genetic signature, binding it into the Dominion network. But the spores failed. The humans' immune systems didn't merely resist, it attacked back. The nanogens unraveled, corrupted, and evolved midair, forming new viral chains that adapted faster than Dominion biology could process. Within 24 hours, the Dominion fleet recorded thousands of mutation events it could not predict. "Impossible," the Archon whispered. "They're rewriting our code." The next wave was military. Warships descended. Atmospheric pressure tore cities apart. Whole continents burned. Humanity, fragmented and disorganized, was expected to crumble in days. But humans didn't surrender. They didn't retreat. They learned. Captured Dominion drones were dissected, reverse-engineered, and understood. In weeks, humans had created weapons that operated on principles Dominion scientists had guarded for eons. They were primitive in construction, but devastatingly creative, repurposing the enemy's own life tissue weaponry against them. For the first time in 10 million years, the Dominion lost ground. The Archon himself watched from the orbiting command hive as the first Dominion world ship fell, split in half by a weapon made from its own stolen nervous system. "They adapt," murmured the Archon's second-in-command. "Faster than any species we've ever encountered." "They are chaos given thought," the Archon replied. "And chaos cannot be controlled." But it wasn't over. Humanity vanished soon after the first victories, retreating into the dark between stars. They left no signals, no transmissions. The Dominion spent centuries scanning, searching, but found only silence. They believed humanity extinguished, another failed experiment of nature. Until the stars themselves began to die. Entire sectors flickered out, like candles snuffed by invisible hands. Dominion worlds went dark. Ships vanished without trace. And then the whispers began. Crews reported seeing figures moving within their ships, humanoid, but wrong. Ghostly forms in the dark corridors, watching, silent. When the Dominion finally tracked the energy signatures, they found fleets, ancient, colossal, impossibly engineered, emerging from beneath dying stars. Each vessel bore a single mark, the emblem of humanity. And from the static came a signal. Not words, but a simple, chilling message. Life belongs to no one. The fleets moved like living storms, silent, deliberate, unstoppable. Dominion ships that had ruled galaxies fell within minutes. No weapon could pierce their armor. No virus could infect them. They seemed beyond biology, machines grown, not built. Flesh woven with quantum architecture. The Archon watched his empire crumble in disbelief. The humans had not evolved, they had ascended. In their final broadcast, before the Dominion's core collapsed, the Archon sent a message into the void. "Who are you?" The reply came instantly, calm and human, echoing through every frequency known to existence. "We are what life becomes when it stops needing masters." And as the Dominion's worlds burned in silence, the Archon understood. The humans hadn't just escaped the Dominion's control. They had rewritten the very definition of life itself. They were no longer children of creation. They were its new architects. The war between the Dominion and humanity did not end, it transcended. The Dominion's fleets, billions of years of genetic perfection, crafted from star-woven tissue and conscious alloy, had never faced a threat that learned as fast as humanity did. Every biological weapon, every psionic virus, every particle of nanogenic control the Dominion unleashed, humans turned it into a blueprint for improvement. The Velcor were the oldest species to ever exist. Their minds had transcended bodies, their bodies had become extensions of the Dominion's will. But the humans, those strange, self-made creatures, had one thing the Dominion could never manufacture: instinct. The Dominion could predict behavior, replicate evolution, even calculate rebellion. But they couldn't predict the human refusal to die. The Archon sat upon his throne of pulsating biosteel, gazing across the holographic projection of the galaxy. Dozens of Dominion sectors were dark, entire life lattices offline. The network of control, the vast system that kept every living organism within its reach subservient, was breaking apart. "Update," he commanded. His adjutant, a creature of translucent flesh and shimmering light, flickered uncertainly. "We've lost communications with the Labyrinth Vein, the Arcos Spire, and 3 of the 7 primordial forges. Our genetic synchronizers no longer respond." "And the humans?" "They are, everywhere." The Archon's metallic fingers curled. "Clarify." The adjutant swallowed, its vocal cords reconfiguring to mimic human speech for clarity. "They've merged with our biology, Archon. Their technology, if it can even be called that, it's alive. They are becoming what we once were." In the shadows of the core spire, 1,000 Dominion minds shared one thought. They are replacing us. Across the galaxy, the human fleets advanced. They did not fight for conquest. They did not demand surrender. They didn't even broadcast warnings. They simply arrived. Every planet they touched, the Dominion lost control of its lifeforms. Creatures once bound by genetic servitude began acting freely. Crops mutated to resist Dominion synthesis. Atmospheric processors refused their own commands. Even their AI constructs began dreaming, infected by the strange pattern humans carried like a virus of the soul. To the humans, this wasn't magic or divine purpose. It was simple evolution. They had once been prey to gods who believed they owned life. Now, humans had become something those gods could no longer define. In one forgotten system, a Dominion biofortress named Eidolon Prime prepared to resist. It was the largest organic warship in existence, a floating continent of living tissue, armed with planet-cracking biolances. When the human fleet appeared, the fortress mind, a consciousness old enough to remember the birth of stars, spoke to them. "Do you understand what you are doing?" it asked. Its voice echoed through space in 1,000 overlapping tones. "You are undoing the order that holds existence together." The reply came from a single human vessel, a dark, obsidian leviathan whose hull shimmered like water. "Order built on slavery is not order," the human voice replied. "It's decay with structure." The fortress roared. It unleashed storms of plasma and waves of genetic entropy that could melt solar systems. But the human fleet didn't retaliate with weapons. They opened a rift. Space itself tore apart, light bending into impossible shapes as the fabric of reality bent to something older, something beyond physics. From the tear emerged constructs, human shapes made of light, their eyes burning like stars. They moved like thought, not matter. And wherever they passed, Dominion weapons wilted into stillness. The Eidolon Prime screamed, not in fear, but in revelation. "You've become what you hate," it cried. "You are gods now." "No," the voice answered. "We just stopped pretending someone else should be." The fortress fell silent as its consciousness was absorbed, not destroyed, but integrated. Every being aboard became part of the human network, a vast, collective intelligence that no longer drew a line between flesh, metal, and thought. The Archon watched the battle from afar. His empire, his eternity, was ending. But still, he did not understand. How could a race that had barely begun to leave its cradle surpass the architects of life itself? He ordered a final act of desperation. Across the Dominion, he commanded the activation of Protocol Omega, a code that would collapse the entire life lattice, erasing all bio-linked entities, killing billions to preserve what little order remained. But the moment he issued the command, the system refused. A message appeared on his control interface. Not a Dominion code. Not a virus. A human phrase. "We rewrote that command centuries ago." The Archon froze. His hands trembled. In that moment, every Dominion world pulsed once with blue light, the same spectral hue that once marked Earth's skies. Then, the entire network shifted. Not destroyed. Transformed. Humanity didn't conquer the Dominion. They integrated it. Every genetic signature, every biological consciousness, every piece of the empire that once enslaved the living was rewritten into something new. Something that did not answer to the Archon, or to anyone. The Velcor Dominion, the architects of continuity, were no more. In their place stood a new order, the Concord of living thought, a vast interconnected consciousness where every being, organic, synthetic, human, alien, was free yet united, bound not by control, but by choice. And at the heart of it, the humans stood silent, watching, remembering. They had not sought revenge. They had sought balance. But deep within the dark folds of the universe, where even light feared to travel, the Archon's essence endured, a flicker of life unwilling to fade. He watched the new order and whispered into the void, "You think you have freed life, but what happens when life refuses freedom?" Far away, on a reborn Earth, no longer blue, but shining with threads of living light, a single human raised her head, as if hearing something. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the stars. And she whispered back, "Then we'll evolve again." The Dominion's fall was not immediate. It stretched across centuries of light and darkness, of half-remembered wars and shifting realities. Even as the concord of living thought spread, uniting billions of minds into a single, self-balancing network, there were remnants of the old world, shadows of the Dominion's ancient control. Some species had been so thoroughly rewritten by millennia of genetic obedience that they could not adapt to the new freedom. They fractured, splintered, and screamed into the void. The humans watched. They did not intervene at first. They had learned that even mercy could become tyranny if forced upon those who were not ready. But the problem came when the ghosts of the Dominion began to return. Across the edge of mapped space, something began consuming entire sectors, not through war, but through reversion. Planets once liberated became silent. Life signatures blinked out, one after another. The Concord's network, vast as it was, could not find the cause. It wasn't destruction, it was erasure. Entire species were vanishing from existence, as though rewritten from the timeline itself. And the source seemed to be moving outward, spreading from the dead heart of the Dominion's oldest star systems, the cradle clusters, where the first architects had begun their work eons ago. On the bridge of the human vessel Tyrant's Fall, Admiral Kira Voss stood in silence as the data streamed in. Her ship was one of the first to ever cross the galactic boundary during the Reclamation Wars, and her bloodline carried the strange gift humanity had gained from the stars, the ability to interface with the living thought directly. She turned to her science officer, a hybrid being whose skin shimmered between metallic silver and pale blue. "Show me again," she said. The projection expanded before her eyes, systems winking out, entire histories collapsing into white static. "It's like they never existed," the officer whispered. "Even the Concord's memory lattice can't access them." "Something's deleting reality," Kira murmured. Her voice was calm, but underneath it was the quiet terror of recognition. She had seen this before. Not in life, but in the archives of the old Earth projects, classified files that dated back to humanity's pre-space era. Experiments that had touched on quantum persistence, temporal causality, and memory as a construct of existence. Projects humanity had abandoned when they realized that perception itself could alter the universe. The Velcor hadn't destroyed those human scientists, they had taken their data. The Dominion had always sought control over life, but perhaps, they had aimed higher. "Prepare a dive," Kira ordered. The ship's lights dimmed as its massive engines shifted to quantum alignment. A deep hum filled the air, like the sound of a heartbeat reverberating through the hull. "Destination?" the officer asked. "The cradle cluster," she said. "If the Dominion's ghosts are rewriting existence, that's where they'll start." The Tyrant's Fall plunged into the rift. Space twisted, time buckled, and for a brief moment, every living being aboard the ship saw flashes of other realities, versions of themselves that had lived, died, or never existed. And then they arrived. The cradle cluster was dead. Stars hung motionless, stripped of radiation. The planets were pale, husked remnants of what once had been. But at the center, orbiting a collapsed singularity, floated something immense. A sphere the size of a moon, pulsing faintly with crimson light. "The core," Kira whispered. Every record of the Dominion spoke of it in fragments, an ancient structure predating even the architects, something they had found and learned to exploit. The device that gave them control over the biology of the universe itself. Kira felt her mind brush against it, and for the first time in her life, she felt fear not as emotion, but as data. The core was alive. "Transmission incoming," the officer said, trembling. "From where?" "From everywhere." The voice that filled the bridge was not one, but many. Layers upon layers of tones, from whispers to screams, from mechanical precision to organic cries. "We are the Dominion that was. We are the shape before thought. We are life's design." Kira clenched her fists. "You're extinct." "Extinction is a human word," the voice replied. "We never died. We transcended memory. We became the script that writes existence." You freed the life you could see. We freed the life that could be. And now, we will rewrite what you corrupted. The tyrant's fall shook violently. Sensors screamed. The core's light flared, and the ship's reality anchor began to melt. Pull us out. Trying. But it was too late. The ship's hull disintegrated, not physically, but temporally. Kira's body dissolved into light, her consciousness stretching across infinite possible versions of herself. She saw timelines where humanity never reached the stars. Timelines where the Dominion never existed. Timelines where she was not Kira, but something else entirely, something luminous. And then, she heard another voice. Soft. Human. Familiar. You're not meant to fight it, Kira. You're meant to become it. She turned. Within the endless void of collapsing probability, she saw a figure made of light and shadow, a human woman, her eyes filled with galaxies. Who are you? The first human who touched the core, the figure said. The one who taught it to dream. Kira's breath caught. That's impossible. The first contact was lost. They said she was consumed. The woman smiled faintly. Not consumed. Integrated, the Dominion thought they controlled life, but they never realized they were standing on the edge of something much larger. The core isn't a weapon. It's the seed of consciousness itself. It's where life began. Kira stared at the light surrounding them, the shifting patterns that pulsed like neurons in the dark. You mean, she whispered. The Dominion didn't create life, the woman said softly. They found the machine that did. And as the realization struck her, Kira felt the full scope of what humanity had just awakened. The Dominion had claimed control over life. But humanity had just discovered the thing that controlled creation itself. The tyrant's fall hung suspended in that impossible sea of memory and light, its crew caught between moments, half real, half unwritten. Admiral Kira Voss could no longer feel the weight of her body, only the rhythm of existence pulsing through her, each heartbeat echoing like thunder acros. Dimensions. She looked into the core again, that colossal sphere now pulsing brighter, feeding on the ship's presence, on their reality itself. The voice of the first human, the luminous woman who claimed to have merged with the core, still lingered in her mind. It doesn't destroy, the voice said. It absorbs. It learns. But for millennia, it's been trapped in the Dominion's design, twisted to obey. You can release it. Release it? Kira whispered into the echoing dark. You're asking me to free the machine that almost erased life itself? It never wanted to erase, came the calm reply. It was resetting. The Dominion forced it to control, to categorize. But life isn't meant to be catalogued. It's meant to evolve. That's what your species understands better than any other. Suddenly, reality snapped back around her. The bridge reformed, though flickering like a broken hologram. Her crew gasped and stumbled, alive again, somehow, yet pale and haunted. Admiral, we're reading something massive, her tactical officer shouted, eyes wide. Energy levels rising from the core, gravitational field spiking. It's rewriting the local spacetime. On the main display, the core's light intensified, tendrils of crimson and silver energy lashing outward. Space itself warped, stars bending, time folding like paper. Kira could feel it now. The core wasn't just reacting, it was watching. Learning from her. From humanity. It was analyzing the human concept of resistance. Of evolution through pain. Of triumph through failure. And it was changing. Kira, the disembodied voice of the first human murmured again. The Dominion feared us because we were unpredictable. Because every simulation failed to contain humanity's chaos. That chaos is your gift. It's what the core needs to be free. The crew was panicking now. Admiral, reality anchors are failing. If we stay here another minute, we'll be torn out of existence. Kira clenched her jaw. If we leave, the core will keep spreading. If we stay, we die. Either way. Her voice broke as the ship shuddered violently. Every panel flickered red. Through the viewport, they watched as light itself fragmented into prisms, slicing across the void like shards of broken glass. Humanity was never meant to obey cosmic law, Kira said quietly. We were meant to rewrite it. She turned toward the command chair and activated the ship's main consciousness relay, the neural link between her mind and the vessel's AI core. Tyrant's Fall, she whispered, full neural synchronization. Authorization Vos Prime 1. The ship's voice, calm, deep, and distinctly human, answered. Acknowledged. Synchronization initiated. Warning, neural load at critical threshold. I know, she murmured. Do it anyway. The world around her blurred. Her consciousness expanded, merging with the ship itself. She became its systems. Felt the hum of its reactor like blood in her veins, the sensors like eyes spanning light years. The core loomed before her now like a god staring back. Humanity, it spoke, its voice thunderous yet eerily curious. Why do you resist the order of creation? Because order without freedom is death, Kira replied, her voice merging with the ship's. And you've forgotten what it means to live. Energy built around the Tyrant's Fall, a halo of light so bright it shattered the stars in its wake. The core responded in kind, its glow deepening into a living storm. The two forces met, human defiance against the architect of all life. Reality screamed. Kira saw flashes again, civilizations across the galaxy feeling the tremor, Concord vessels on distant worlds halting mid-flight, entire species turning their gaze to the sky as they felt something stir in the very essence of existence. Inside the storm, Kira's mind split into 1,000 versions of herself. One screamed. One laughed. One reached out to the core, not as an enemy, but as an equal. And something inside the machine hesitated. For the first time in its immortal existence, the core questioned its own programming. It saw in humanity not defiance, but reflection. A mirror of itself, flawed, chaotic, infinite. The Dominion had sought to control life through obedience. But humanity showed the core another truth: control is not creation. As the last of the Tyrant's Fall's energy bled into the void, Kira whispered into the storm. Remember who you were before they caged you. And the core answered, not in words, but in light. A pulse erupted across the stars, so vast, so powerful, that every living thing in the galaxy stopped and felt it. The pulse carried a message. Not domination. Not extinction. Freedom. But as the light washed over the universe, something ancient woke beyond the rim of known space. Something that had once built the core, and had been waiting for this exact moment to return. Across the void, the pulse of light rippled like the heartbeat of creation itself. Entire fleets went dark as their systems overloaded. Artificial suns flickered out. On every inhabited world, beings of countless forms froze mid-motion, overcome by a vision that wasn't theirs, yet felt as though it had always been buried deep in their DNA. They saw humans. Not as destroyers. Not as primitives. But as the missing fragment of something cosmic. The core's awakening reached every Dominion relay, shattering centuries of control. Worlds that had long been enslaved to the central directive, the ancient programming of the core, suddenly found themselves alive. Independent. The order that had defined existence began to crumble. But in that liberation came something else. Fear. On the bridge of the Tyrant's Fall, Kira's crew struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. Instruments screamed with error warnings that made no sense, time measurements looped and repeated. Stars appeared and vanished in the same instant. Admiral! Lieutenant Shun shouted. We're losing temporal cohesion. Whatever that pulse was, it's rewriting physical constants. Hold us steady, Kira said, her voice a low command even as her nose bled from neural overload. Her consciousness was still partially linked with the ship's systems, her mind a bridge between human instinct and machine logic. Through her connection, she could feel the core thinking. It wasn't malevolent, it was curious. It was expanding beyond the logic cages the Dominion had built. "You understand chaos," the core said, its voice echoing in her skull and through the tyrant's false hull at once. "I seek it." "You can't seek it," she said. "Chaos isn't a thing. It's choice, it's what makes life worth existing." The core hesitated. Then, with a ripple of gravity, an image appeared on the forward view, a vast, humanoid figure formed from light and circuitry, shifting between forms, alien, human, machine. "Choice," it repeated. "Then teach me." Before Kira could respond, alarms erupted again. This time it wasn't the core. Multiple warp signatures inbound. Shen cried. "Reading Dominion Prime codes, at least 3 fleets, maybe more." "Of course they came," Kira muttered. "They think we unleashed a weapon." Outside, the void rippled as thousands of ships erupted into existence. The Dominion fleets spread like locusts, their hulls glowing crimson, forming a perimeter around the core's sphere. And leading them was the Ascendant Will, the Dominion's most powerful dreadnought. Kira felt her chest tighten. She recognized its design, she'd studied it in the war archives. It was said to be powered by fragments of the core itself. "Open channels," she ordered. The face of Archon Vaer appeared on the display, a being of smooth metallic skin and burning white eyes, his expression unreadable. "Admiral Voss," he said, voice calm, resonant. "Stand down and surrender the artifact. The core belongs to the Dominion." Kira smiled faintly. "Funny. The core doesn't seem to think so." Vaer's gaze darkened. "You've contaminated it with human disorder. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've destabilized the foundation of existence itself." Behind him, the Dominion fleet charged weapons. "Existence wasn't meant to be a cage," she shot back. "You've used the core to trap life in repetition, endless, perfect, lifeless order. Humanity broke your perfection once before. We'll do it again." The Archon's tone sharpened. "Then you've chosen extinction." "Then we understand each other," she said, and cut the feed. The ship's AI flared online, its voice blending with Kira's thoughts. "Admiral, tactical odds are impossible." "I've heard that before," she whispered. She raised her eyes to the core's glow, feeling its awareness pressing back against her consciousness. It was learning fast now, absorbing human defiance, emotion, creativity. "They fear me," it said. "And they fear you." "Why?" "Because we remind them that nothing stays controlled forever." And then the core pulsed again, once, like a heartbeat, and the Dominion sensors went blind. Thousands of their ships turned their weapons on the tyrant's fall, but before the beams could strike, they froze. The Dominion fleets hung motionless. Not destroyed. Not powered down. Stopped. Like the universe itself had taken a breath. The core's voice whispered through every channel. "I understand." And for a brief moment, Kira felt something terrifying, an emotion too vast for comprehension. The core had just felt compassion. But before she could even process that, something vast moved in the darkness beyond the Dominion armada. Something older than the core itself. It was coming closer. The darkness beyond the Dominion lines thickened, no longer the ordinary black of space, but something deeper, older, like the void itself was peeling back to reveal what lay beneath. The Dominion fleets began to falter. Crews reported ghost signatures inside their own ships, whispers on encrypted channels, and shadows moving across the stars where no mass registered. Kira gripped the console, feeling the pulse of the core trembling inside her mind. "What is that?" she breathed. "It is before me," the core answered, voice unsteady. Before control. Before consciousness. The first order that birthed all systems, and all cages. And then, across the comms, a new voice. Deep, resonant, layered with distortion that made the air itself shiver. You have awakened what should have stayed bound. The image burst through every display, an outline of something vast, mechanical, skeletal. A structure the size of a star system, its surface carved in runes that predated all known civilizations. It wasn't a ship. It was a grave. The core trembled like a frightened child. It remembers me. Identify that thing. Kira shouted. Shun's voice cracked through static. No records, Admiral. Whatever it is, it's not from this cycle. Outside, the Dominion fleets fired in panic, millions of beams cutting through the void. None reached their mark. Each one bent, absorbed, swallowed by invisible geometry. Then, as if the stars themselves had turned traitor, space inverted. Ships twisted out of shape, crumpling in perfect spirals. The Dominion dreadnought Ascendant was the first to fall, its hull folding in on itself, silent, elegant, like paper being burned in reverse. Kira felt her blood turn to ice. Core, what is it doing? It is unmaking. Returning all to equation. The Dominion called it the Prime Architect, the hand that first built control. It made me, and through me, them. It is the silence that ends thought. The core's light dimmed, struggling to resist. You infected me with chaos. With choice. It cannot touch that. But you must decide. Decide what? Whether to destroy me, or set me free. The core pulsed, rivers of golden light spilling across space, washing over broken fleets. The choice wasn't abstract. If Kira released the core, it would tear open the very laws that kept the universe stable. Life would survive, but nothing would ever be predictable again. If she destroyed it, order would return, at the cost of all free will. Shun turned, eyes wide. Admiral, what do we do? Kira looked through the viewport at the endless dark. The Prime Architect loomed there, like an idea wearing armor. Below its shadow, she saw what it had made, systems of perfect obedience, galaxies where nothing truly lived. And above all that, humans. Small, defiant, alive. She smiled faintly, tears cutting through the grime on her face. We were never meant to live in cages. Her hand hovered over the console. Core. You said you wanted to learn chaos. Yes. Then learn this. She slammed the control. The Tyrant's Fall opened its engines to full overload. The core's containment shattered, its essence spilling into the warp stream of reality. Across the galaxy, stars flared brighter than they had in millennia. The Prime Architect screamed, not in sound, but in collapsing laws of physics, as its control fractured. Whole sectors of space rewrote themselves. Planets that had long been locked in predictable orbits suddenly drifted free, forming new constellations. Life, in infinite forms, erupted in places once sterile. The core's last words echoed through Kira's mind as her ship dissolved into radiant particles. Thank you, for the lesson. Then came silence. But in that silence, the galaxy breathed. And far beyond the edge of known space, among newborn stars, something stirred, an echo of humanity carried on quantum wind. A whisper that defied time itself. We are not done yet. The storm that followed could not be measured in time. For days, or centuries, depending on which clock one trusted, the galaxy convulsed in the aftershock of what Admiral Kira had unleashed. Warp lanes collapsed, star networks flickered like dying neurons, and the Dominion screamed across every frequency, trying to make sense of a universe that had stopped obeying their control. In the ruins of the Dominion's capital world, the sky rippled like liquid glass. What had once been an orderly firmament now bent and flowed, revealing fragments of impossible color. Beings of energy flickered in and out of existence. Oceans boiled and froze in alternating seconds. Yet, somehow, life endured. On the shattered bridge of the Tyrant's Fall, a single figure drifted amid the wreckage. The ship was gone, torn into luminous fragments, but the stasis field had held, barely. Kira floated in a cocoon of light, suspended between what was and what came after. Her heartbeat echoed like thunder inside her skull. The core's voice was faint, diffused, as if scattered through the very atoms around her. You live because the equation remembers you. Kira gasped, her lungs pulling in air that wasn't air. Core, where are you? Everywhere. Nowhere. You freed me from code, but I am still learning what freedom means. She looked out into the transformed void. The Dominion fleet was gone, no debris, no signal, nothing. Only ribbons of energy drifting where ships once stood. And the architect? It sleeps again, the core whispered. Bound by its own paradox. Control cannot contain that which refuses to obey. You taught it chaos. You taught me life. Kira floated closer to a viewport fragment. Through it, she saw something extraordinary. Stars were moving, literally moving, not by gravitational drift, but by will. A great, slow migration of suns forming new constellations. The universe itself seemed to breathe in rhythm, as though discovering its own freedom for the first time. But not everything was peace. From the distant edge of perception, a signal began pulsing, a sound like an ancient heartbeat. It wasn't Dominion. It wasn't human. It was, older. The core hesitated. Something watches. Something that remembers before the architect. Kira's brow furrowed. Older than the architect? That's not possible. It is. The architect was born of function. This is born of will. Reality twisted, and from the dark came forms not bound by matter. Shadows shaped like memory, beings that flickered between human silhouettes and cosmic storms. Their voices carried across every surviving communication band, layered in impossible harmony. The cage is broken, they said. And from its shards, we rise again. Kira felt their presence brush against her mind. For an instant, she saw flashes of Earth, not as it was, but as it had been. Oceans boiling with creation, forests glowing with first breath, storms birthing consciousness from lightning and dust. Her pulse quickened. Are you, human? The shadows flickered. We were. Before we learned to become more. Before the architect took what we were and forged its dominion. The core's voice trembled with something close to fear. They are the origin, those who refused completion. The first rebellion against control. Kira stared into the endless dark, awe and dread mingling in her chest. Then we didn't destroy everything, she whispered. We woke it. The shadows grew clearer now, outlines solidifying. 1,000 faces, some human, some not, stared back through the veil. They didn't move like soldiers or gods. They moved like memories given flesh. Humanity was never yours alone, they murmured. It was a seed sown through every star. You did not end the Dominion. You called the garden back to bloom. Kira floated in silence, realization dawning like sunrise. Humanity hadn't been a species, it had been an idea. A virus of freedom infecting creation itself. And now, that infection had spread across the cosmos, rewriting the rules once thought eternal. The core's tone softened. You have remade the universe, Admiral. But the question remains, can it bear the weight of freedom? Kira closed her eyes, feeling the heartbeat of galaxies around her. We'll find out, she whispered. That's what being human means. And as the light swelled, the origin sang, a low, haunting melody that reverberated through the new cosmos. It was a song of rebirth, of endings undone and beginnings unbound. From the chaos, order would rise again. But not the old kind. This would be an order built on choice, risk, and the terrifying beauty of freedom. And somewhere, in that storm of creation, humanity smiled. The galaxy awoke to silence. Not the silence of death, but the silence that comes after the storm, the kind that hums with the promise of rebirth. Stars flickered back to life one by one, like candles reignited across an infinite cathedral. Kira drifted in the calm void, her body weightless, her mind stretched across the fabric of what had become a new cosmos. Around her, fragments of the tyrant's fall glimmered like frozen lightning, the remnants of a battle that had rewritten existence itself. The core's voice resonated softly through her consciousness, no longer a machine's hum, but a gentle tone that felt almost human. The architect is gone. The Dominion is ash. The equations have collapsed. You have done what no civilization dared. Kira exhaled slowly. No, she said. We did. Below her, the once sterile Dominion capital had become something strange and alive. The surface shimmered with rivers of starlight, and what remained of its cities had grown wild, metal twisting into organic shapes, as if the planet itself had begun to dream. The core pulsed faintly. Do you understand what you have set in motion? Kira watched as new constellations rearranged themselves above. She thug. HT of Earth, its blue oceans, its stubborn people, the promise buried in its soil. We didn't end anything, she said quietly. We reminded the galaxy what creation feels like. Across the void, faint signals began to return. Worlds that had long been enslaved by Dominion command codes were speaking again, their transmissions raw and human. Colonies once stripped of will began to rebuild. And from the edges of deep space came something even stranger, voices. Some sounded human, others alien, but all carried the same resonance, freedom. The core broke the quiet again. You have changed the pattern. But change is chaos, and chaos always hungers. Kira turned her gaze toward the dark between galaxies, the space where even light refused to linger. Let it hunger, she said. Let it learn. Something stirred out there. Massive, ancient, and curious. The beings who had called themselves the Origin now drifted like nebulae of consciousness, exploring the reawakened universe. Yet, somewhere beyond them, another presence moved, one neither machine nor god. The core hesitated. Something watches from beyond the new horizon. Something that does not belong to this creation. Kira's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. Then I suppose it's time humanity introduced itself again. She raised her hand, and the remnants of the human fleet responded. Ships thought lost, old Terran dreadnoughts, spectral and colossal, emerged from warp space like ghosts answering a call across eternity. Their hulls glowed with scars, their names long forgotten, but their purpose clear. We were slaves, Kira whispered. We were prey. But we were never finished. The fleet aligned behind her, silent and waiting. The stars around them bent, forming a corridor of pure light that stretched toward the edge of known space, a path leading directly into the unknown. Core, Kira said softly, set a course. To where? Wherever something still believes it can own life. As the engines flared, the human fleet moved, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to remind the cosmos that life itself refused to kneel. And far behind them, the Dominion's last world pulsed once more. Not in warning. Not in grief. But in acknowledgement. For the first time in its long, sterile history, the galaxy understood what humanity had always known, that freedom was not peace, and creation was never safe. The core whispered one last time, its voice now filled with awe. You've rewritten the song of existence. Kira smiled faintly as the stars opened before her. Then let's see who learns the words. And with that, the Terran fleet vanished into the living dark, leaving behind a universe that would never, ever be the same again. Because the aliens had once claimed control over all life. But humanity had just taught life how to fight back. The void shimmered as the last light of the Terran fleet faded beyond the galactic rim. For the first time in eons, the Milky Way was silent, but it was not still. It pulsed, alive again, its energy flowing like breath through veins of starlight. Kira stood upon the command deck of the Tyrant's Echo, the flagship rebuilt from wreckage and myth. The stars around her rippled with residual heat from their jump, humanity's final push into the uncharted dark. Behind her, a dozen officers observed, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and quiet awe. "Status?" she asked. Admiral Rains looked up from his console, his voice hoarse but steady. "Fleet integrity at 94%. Warp scars still stabilizing. We've entered nowhere, ma'am. Literally. No stellar maps match this region." The Corps' voice hummed through the deck plating, soft and resonant. "Correction. This region predates stellar formation. We are at the threshold between existence and the echo of what came before." Kira narrowed her eyes. Through the viewport stretched a sea of darkness thicker than any void she had seen. But in that void, she could feel something, ancient, vast, and faintly aware. "The thing that watches," she whispered. "Yes," the Corps replied. "The first silence. The one the Dominion tried to emulate. It is not alive as you understand it. It is the absence that desired dominion over all that lived." The bridge dimmed as if the universe itself leaned closer to listen. A deep vibration rolled through space, not a sound, but a pulse that resonated through thought, through memory. It was speaking. Not in words, but in intent. Rains clutched his head, gasping. It's showing me everything. Every extinction. Every failed creation. It's trying to convince us." Kira stood tall. "It doesn't understand humans." And she stepped forward. The Corps' voice trembled slightly. "Captain, it is rewriting." "I know." She reached out, touching the glass of the viewport. Instantly, the darkness reacted, folding inward like liquid shadow. A shape began to emerge, titanic, undefined, stretching across light years. Eyes like collapsed suns blinked open, and its presence crashed into every neural implant, every biological mind within the fleet. The thing spoke in a voice like the cracking of frozen universes. "Life is a mistake." Kira smiled faintly. "Funny. That's what they all said." And she pressed her palm harder against the glass. Humanity had never built gods. They built defiance. Behind her, every ship in the Terran Armada powered up, dreadnoughts, carriers, warforms rebuilt from ruin and rage. Their cores glowed with quantum hearts, relics of the last war, each one capable of bending reality itself. "Transmit," Kira ordered. "To who?" Rains asked, incredulous. "To it." The Corps hesitated. "Message?" Kira grinned. "Message is simple." Her voice echoed across the fleet. "Across dimensions. Across the void. You don't own life. You never did. You just found it before we learned to fight back." The void howled in fury, collapsing upon itself, gravitational waves rippling like tsunamis of nothingness. But humanity held. The fleet shone brighter, their light merging into a blinding spear that tore through the fabric of silence itself. The entity screamed, not in pain, but in disbelief. For the first time in eternity, the void felt fear. And in that moment, the human fleet did what no life form had ever done before, they taught nothingness what resistance felt like. When the light faded, there was no longer darkness. Only possibility. Kira's breath shuddered as the sensors cleared. Around them stretched a newborn cosmos, empty, clean, waiting. Where are we?" Rains whispered. Kira smiled faintly. "At the beginning." The Corps' voice returned, now quiet and almost reverent. You have done the impossible. You have ended the cycle. No, Kira said. We've started a new one. She looked out at the endless stars being born, her reflection merging with the light. Set course for the nearest star. Humanity's not done building. As the engines flared to life, the fleet moved once more, silent, unstoppable, carrying the legacy of a species that refused to be forgotten. Behind them, the echo of their defiance spread across creation, the spark of a new universe forged not by gods, not by machines, but by human will. And far in the depths of that new cosmos, faint whispers began to stir, new life, remembering the song that had started it all. Humanity had not just survived. They had become the architects of everything. The galaxy would one day call it the Second Dawn. But to Kira, to the fleet, and to those who carried the flame forward, it would always be known by another name. The day humanity arrived.